Welcome to Stairway to English. Today's topic is called Donald Trump's Controlled Global Chaos. Listen carefully, read along, and practice your English with real and powerful contents. If you enjoy learning this way, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more English practice every day. Episode 1: The Rise of a Global Storm. Donald Trump is one of the most talked about people in the modern world. His name is known in almost every country. Some people see him as a strong leader. Others see him as a man who brings chaos everywhere he goes. But there is one truth that both sides agree on. Trump knows how to control attention. He knows how to make the world talk about him. And that skill, more than anything else, helped him build what we can call controlled global chaos. Before he became president of the United States, Trump was already a global figure. He built tall towers with his name on them. He owned hotels, golf courses, and casinos. His TV show, The Apprentice, made him famous as a boss who liked power, control, and competition. People around the world began to see Trump not only as a businessman, but as a symbol of confidence, money, and risk. Trump's rise was not quiet. He loved to speak loudly, to challenge people, to break rules. In business meetings, on TV, or on social media, he wanted to surprise. He believed that if people were shocked or emotional, they would remember him. For Trump, attention was energy, and the more attention he got, the more powerful he felt. Many people think chaos is a problem. They think it means confusion, anger, or loss of control. But Trump used chaos differently. He saw it as a tool. He believed that by creating noise, movement, and emotion, he could control the situation, even if it looked out of control to others. This was the secret of his strategy. It was controlled chaos. When Trump entered politics, the world did not take him seriously at first. Many thought he was joking when he said, "I will run for president." But Trump was not joking. He saw an opportunity. He understood that people were tired of traditional politicians. They wanted someone who looked strong, spoke simply, and sounded different. Trump gave them exactly that. During his campaign, his words were not always polite or careful, but they were powerful. He spoke directly, sometimes emotionally, sometimes angrily. His speeches were like shows, full of energy, movement, and unpredictability. People couldn't look away. The media followed him everywhere. Every word he said became news. Even his mistakes became part of his power. This was the moment when Trump's controlled chaos became global. His tweets shook markets. His statements changed political conversations across continents. Every time he said something surprising, journalists wrote about it. People argued online, and his name stayed in the center of the world stage. Trump understood something that few others did. In the digital age, attention is the new power. Whoever controls the conversation controls the direction of the world. It doesn't matter if people love or hate you as long as they keep talking about you. Behind his loud personality, there was calculation. Trump used language in a very strategic way. He used short, strong words. He repeated phrases like fake news, great again, the best, disaster, and tremendous. These words were easy to remember. They worked like slogans. They stayed in people's minds, and that was no accident. The world watched as his style of communication spread. Leaders in other countries began using similar methods: emotional words, dramatic speeches, social media posts. Some called it the Trump effect. It was the idea that chaos could be a kind of control, that attention, even negative attention, could shape politics and public opinion. To some, Trump was dangerous because he didn't follow the usual rules. To others, he was brave for doing exactly that. But no matter what people thought, they couldn't ignore him. He had created a storm that reached every country, a storm of opinions, debates, and emotions. This was not random. It was designed. Trump's world was never quiet. He built his image through noise, power, and boldness. He knew that silence meant weakness, so he made sure there was always something to talk about: a comment, a tweet, a conflict. And while many believed he was unpredictable, he often knew exactly what he was doing. The chaos looked uncontrolled, but it was part of his plan. It was controlled global chaos. In the next episode, we will explore how Trump's global influence changed after he entered the White House, and how his unique way of communication reshaped not only American politics, but the way the whole world talks about power, media, and truth. Episode 2: The White House Tornado. When Donald Trump became the 45th President of the United States, many people believed the world was about to change. Some hoped for a new kind of leadership, while others feared what he might do. But almost everyone agreed on one thing: Trump was not like any president before him. He didn't follow traditions. He didn't speak like a politician. He acted more like a businessman running a giant company called America. From his first day in office, Trump made headlines. His decisions, his tweets, his words, everything he did became news. He turned politics into a daily show where emotions were stronger than logic. He used television, Twitter, and public speeches as his personal stage. Every day he created new stories, new discussions, and new conflicts. The world watched with surprise, confusion, and fascination. Inside the White House, Trump's leadership style was different. He liked competition among his team. He believed that conflict created better results. People around him often disagreed loudly, and Trump encouraged it. For him, arguments were not chaos, they were part of his control. He believed that when people were emotional, they revealed their true selves, and he could see who was loyal and who was not. This constant tension became the symbol of his administration. Newspapers called it chaos, but Trump called it energy. He said, without energy, nothing great happens. He used pressure to push people to work faster, to react quickly, and to stay alert. Some could handle it, others could not. Many advisors left the White House because they couldn't live in such a storm. But the storm never stopped because Trump wanted it that way. Internationally, Trump brought his style of controlled chaos to global politics. He questioned old alliances, criticized world leaders, and spoke in a way no American president had ever spoken before. He told NATO countries to pay more for defense. He argued with China about trade. He even met with North Korea's Kim Jong-un, something no president before him had done. Each action created shock and media noise. Critics said he was destroying diplomacy. Supporters said he was being strong and independent. But for Trump, the most important thing was simple. The world was talking about him. Every move he made became a headline. Every conflict became a chance to show his power. Trump also changed how leaders use social media. His tweets were not just words, they were weapons, tools, and messages to his followers. He didn't wait for journalists to explain his ideas. He went directly to the people. Sometimes his tweets created confusion, sometimes anger, sometimes laughter, but they always created reaction. That was what he wanted. His communication style was short and emotional. He used simple phrases like sad, fake news, and make America great again. These short expressions carried strong emotions and were easy to remember. For English learners, these phrases became examples of how powerful language can be when it's direct and confident. But not everyone saw Trump's methods as genius. Many believed his chaos had real consequences. Relationships with allies grew weaker. The global image of the U.S. changed. The media was full of arguments and division. Inside the country, people began to live in two different realities, one that saw Trump as a hero and another that saw him as a danger. This division was not accidental. Trump understood that when people are divided, they are also emotional, and emotional people talk more, share more, post more. That meant more attention and more power. His world was built on constant communication. Silence was his enemy. Yet, under all the noise, Trump had a clear goal. He wanted to redefine what leadership looked like. For him, strength was not about peace and calm. It was about standing firm, speaking loudly, and refusing to be controlled by others. He wanted to show that unpredictability could be a strength, that chaos could be strategy. When foreign leaders met Trump, they were often unsure of what to expect. One day he could praise them, the next day he could criticize them. That unpredictability kept everyone nervous, and that gave him an advantage. In negotiations, he believed that surprise was a powerful weapon. Trump once said, "I like being unpredictable. It keeps the other side off balance." And in many ways, that was his philosophy not only in business, but also in politics. He turned unpredictability into art. As time passed, his approach divided the world even more. Some countries admired his boldness. Others were worried about his words. But whether people liked him or not, they could not ignore him. That was his victory. By the end of his presidency, Trump had changed not only America, but also how global politics worked. He showed that information, emotion, and media could be used as tools of control, even when everything looked chaotic. He taught the world that communication itself was a battlefield. In the next episode, we will explore what happened when this controlled chaos reached its limit, when his words, actions, and emotions began to collide with reality, and how that moment changed the perception of power, truth, and leadership forever. Episode 3. When Chaos Meets Reality. As Donald Trump's presidency continued, his unique style of leadership began to face new challenges. For years, he had used surprise, conflict, and emotional communication to control the narrative. But slowly, the chaos that once gave him power began to work against him. What had once looked like energy now started to feel like confusion, not only to his critics, but also to some of his supporters. At first, the world was fascinated by Trump's direct style. He said what he thought without filters. He didn't care about political correctness. He looked strong because he wasn't afraid to break rules. But as time went on, people started to wonder, where does this chaos lead? Can a country, or even the world, survive in a constant storm? Inside the White House, the environment became harder to manage. Many of Trump's close advisors left their jobs. Some were fired suddenly, others resigned because they couldn't handle the pressure anymore. The tornado energy that Trump loved began to cause cracks in his administration. Meetings turned into arguments. Plans changed every hour. It was hard to know who had the final word. For Trump, this chaos still felt like control. He believed he was keeping everyone alert and loyal. But from the outside, it looked different. The media described his leadership as unstable. Opponents called him dangerous. Allies found it difficult to trust what he would do next. Even his most loyal team members sometimes didn't know how to interpret his words. His relationship with the press also became more intense. Trump often called journalists fake news. He said they lied about him and created unfair stories. The media, in return, followed him everywhere, reported every word, and criticized every mistake. It was like a love-hate relationship between Trump and the news. Each side needed the other. The more the media attacked him, the stronger his connection with his followers became. Online, his Twitter account became his most powerful weapon, but also his biggest risk. Every message could reach millions instantly. Every word had the power to move markets, start arguments, or even affect international relations. But as his tweets became more frequent and more emotional, the line between communication and chaos began to blur. One moment he was negotiating trade with China, the next he was insulting world leaders online. Some said it was a smart strategy, keeping opponents off balance. Others said it was reckless and dangerous. But for Trump, it was all part of his plan. He believed that showing emotion made him real and being unpredictable made him strong. Then came moments that tested his approach. Moments when chaos met reality. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit, the world needed calm, clear, scientific communication. But Trump's instinct was still to fight, to challenge, to dominate the message. He gave strong, sometimes confusing statements. He fought with experts, argued with journalists, and even questioned science. This time, chaos didn't bring power, it brought confusion and fear. The same emotional energy that had once inspired millions now divided them even more. People didn't know what to believe. The storm that once made Trump unstoppable now made it difficult for him to lead. Outside the U.S., his unpredictability also started to lose effect. Other world leaders began to adapt. They learned how to handle his style. They no longer reacted emotionally to every statement. Some waited quietly, others ignored his comments. The world began to understand that behind the noise, Trump's strategy was built on attention. If you didn't react, you took away his strength. By the end of his term, Trump's chaos was everywhere, in the news, on the internet, in homes, and even inside people's minds. The world was emotionally exhausted. Some admired his courage, others wanted peace and quiet again, but no one could deny that he had changed global politics forever. Still, Trump didn't see it as failure. He often said, "We've shaken things up. We've woken people up." And maybe he was right. He had shown how communication could replace traditional power. He had proved that emotions could control nations as effectively as laws or armies. But the question remained, how long can chaos stay controlled before it turns against its creator? Trump's energy was still there, his voice still loud, but the system he had shaken was beginning to push back. In this third phase of his story, we see both sides of his philosophy, the brilliance and the risk. Chaos gave him attention, but it also built walls. It made him the center of the world, but also its most controversial figure. In the next episode, we'll explore how Trump's influence continued beyond politics, how his style reshaped social media, culture, and the very idea of truth. Because even after leaving office, his controlled chaos never truly ended. It simply moved to a new stage, the global digital stage. Episode 4: The Global Stage Reacts. When Donald Trump stepped onto the world stage, the reactions were intense and often unpredictable. Some leaders saw him as a strong and direct man, a person who spoke without fear and acted without waiting for approval. Others saw him as dangerous, unstable, or simply too emotional to lead a global superpower. His words often created headlines that spread quickly around the world. Yet, behind all the noise, there was a plan, a form of controlled chaos that made people watch closely, guess his next move, and react to his every word. During his presidency, Trump challenged the traditional rules of diplomacy. He met with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, something that no American president had done before. The world was shocked when the two men shook hands in front of cameras. Some believed it was a sign of pace, others thought it gave legitimacy to a dictator. But Trump saw it differently. He believed in the power of direct talk, not quiet backroom discussions. He wanted to show strength, not just make deals behind closed doors. In Europe, Trump's attitude toward NATO surprised many allies. He criticized countries for not paying their fair share, saying that the United States could no longer protect everyone for free. This upset European leaders, but it also made them think about their responsibilities. For Trump, this was part of his America First strategy. He wanted to remind everyone that the U.S. was strong because it stood for itself. To him, fairness meant each country taking care of its own interests first. In trade, Trump fought hard against China. He said China had been taking advantage of the United States for many years. Tariffs and economic pressure became his main tools. Some economists feared that this would start a trade war, but Trump believed pressure would lead to better deals. It was another form of his controlled chaos. He made bold moves, waited for the reaction, and then used that reaction to gain more leverage in negotiations. His unpredictability became a kind of power. When he pulled the U.S. out of international agreements like the Paris Climate Accord and the Iran nuclear deal, global leaders were frustrated. They said it showed a lack of cooperation and global unity. But Trump saw those agreements as unfair or weak. He wanted deals that directly benefited his country, not arrangements that he believed tied America's hands. His decision sent a clear message. America would no longer follow global trends blindly. It would lead or step away on its own terms. The media around the world covered every move, every tweet, every word. His language was simple and often emotional, which made it easy for people to understand and react to. This was key to his influence. Even when critics attacked him, they still spread his message. Every argument, every news debate about his actions made him stay in the center of attention. For Trump, that was the goal. Visibility was power. In many ways, Trump turned world politics into a stage performance. He understood that in modern times, power isn't just about decisions, it's about perception. He used television, social media, and public appearances to shape how people saw him. To his supporters, he was a hero who fought against a corrupt system. To his enemies, he was a dangerous man who didn't follow rules. But both sides kept watching. That was the essence of controlled chaos. Keep everyone watching, guessing, and reacting. Even after leaving office, Trump continued to shape discussions across the globe. His influence didn't disappear, it transformed. Leaders began copying his style, using bold language, direct communication, and emotional connection with their people. He had changed the way politics looked and felt. Whether people liked him or not, Trump forced the world to adjust to his rhythm. Behind every move, there was a strange kind of order, one that made his chaos seem less random. He didn't care about pleasing everyone. He cared about changing the game. The world was learning that this was not the old style of diplomacy. It was something new, fast, loud, and always unpredictable. And as global leaders reacted to his every step, Trump stayed exactly where he wanted to be, in control of the chaos he had created. Episode 5: The Legacy of Controlled Global Chaos. Donald Trump's time on the world stage may have ended as president, but his influence continues to shape politics, business, and global conversation. His approach, what many called controlled chaos, didn't vanish when he left office. Instead, it spread like a ripple across countries, leaders, and societies that had watched his rise closely. Love him or hate him, everyone learned something from Trump's unpredictable way of leading. After leaving the White House, Trump didn't fade into silence as many expected. He stayed active, loud, and visible. Through rallies, interviews, and his own media platforms, he continued to speak directly to millions of people. His voice remained powerful because it wasn't filtered by traditional media. He used the same strategy that worked for him from the start, connecting directly with the public, skipping the polished political language, and using emotional, simple words that people could easily relate to. This kept his supporters loyal and his critics alert. Trump's legacy in the United States is complex. Some Americans see him as the man who woke up a sleeping system, someone who spoke for the working class, who dared to challenge elites, and who broke the rules of traditional politics. Others see him as a source of division, someone whose chaotic style deepened social and political conflicts. But even his critics admit one truth: he changed how politics worked. Speeches, campaigns, and international relations all became louder, faster, and more direct after him. His way of leading inspired a new generation of politicians around the world. Leaders in different countries began to copy his communication style, strong, emotional, and often confrontational. They learned that being unpredictable could be a strategy, not a weakness. They saw that making people feel something, anger, pride, or fear, could create loyalty stronger than any logical argument. Trump had turned emotion into a political weapon. In global politics, Trump's America First approach left deep marks. It made allies rethink their relationships with the United States. It pushed countries in Europe to consider their own independence in defense and trade. It forced China to adapt its strategies and opened new discussions about fairness in global trade. Even years later, these shifts are still visible. The idea of each nation fighting for its own interests first became more common. In that sense, Trump's influence extended far beyond American borders. But controlled chaos came with a cost. His unpredictable actions sometimes created confusion, uncertainty, and fear in markets and among allies. Yet for Trump, that uncertainty was a tool. He believed that when people couldn't predict his next move, they would act more carefully. It was a form of negotiation through pressure. His success or failure depends on how one defines leadership. Is it about peace and stability, or about forcing movement and change? Trump clearly chose the second path. Even in business and culture, Trump's influence is visible. Many companies began to study his media strategies, his way of creating attention, shaping stories, and turning criticism into fuel. He turned controversy into momentum. Every attack against him became proof, in his eyes, that he was still powerful. It was a masterclass in using opposition as a tool for visibility. Today, as discussions about democracy, media, and truth continue, Trump's name remains at the center. Some fear his return to power, others hope for it. Either way, his style, loud, bold, and unpredictable, continues to affect how leaders communicate and how people think about authority. He changed expectations of leadership itself. The old image of a calm, careful leader no longer defines strength for many people. Instead, strength is now seen in directness, emotion, and the ability to dominate the conversation, all qualities Trump demonstrated with mastery. In the end, controlled global chaos wasn't only about politics. It was about power, how to gain it, keep it, and use it to shape the world. Trump showed that in the age of media and instant communication, control doesn't always come from peace or order. Sometimes it comes from managing chaos, from knowing when to stir emotions, when to speak, and when to remain silent. History will debate Donald Trump for generations. Some will call him a destroyer of traditions. Others will call him a builder of a new political era. But one thing is certain. He changed the rhythm of the world. His chaos was not random. It was a new kind of order, one that continues to echo in global politics, business, and culture. Whether people saw him as a hero or a storm, Donald Trump made one lesson clear. In a world where attention is power, the person who controls chaos controls the narrative.